Let's be real. Most leaders don't wake up thinking, I need a PMP. But the truth is, a lot of us are already managing projects without realizing it. So, in this interview, I'm talking to Adam, and he's going to talk about three things. One, the value of project management. Two, the return on investment in 2025 if you earn the PMP. And three, the best way to pass the PMP without wasting time. Hey, Adam.
Hey Liz, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's jump in. Okay, so can you give me some real world examples of how people are doing like project management? Because I kind of think PMP and I think you got to be like a nerd that's doing CE stuff. No offense.
Right, I don't think all project managers are engineers. I think that's a misconception. Um, I think that, and to quote kind of PMI, Project Management Institute language,
Hmm.
anyone who's working with, a problem that has a cost, a time schedule, they have a quality objective, like they have to meet a certain type of output, and has people involved, is doing project management. A lot of people have seen that the three-part triangle, cost, quality, schedule, is some balance of those. PMI puts a lot of effort and focus on the people part. Projects are inherently human activities, right? We're not always working with robots or with AI or whatever it may be. But anybody who's working with those four things, whether it's planning a wedding, or it is a construction project, or if you're a student, you're personally trying to get your thesis done. You're spending money on it. You're doing some research. You have a schedule when you need to get it done, and you have to make it the right level of quality so your advisor accepts it. Something as simple as an academic project, i.e., the research or just the thesis itself, are easy examples. And what's really cool about PMI and the PMP, it's written in a language in such a way that it can apply to just about anything you can imagine, even like finding a house. Like
Oh,
there's
that's
an
perfect.
infinite number of ways to apply the language from PMI and the tools and fundamentals that you can learn from earning your PMP.
Okay, so if I'm a beginner, I haven't looked at anything about projects like PMP. We talk about like our day-to-day things, our operations, and then a project, like how do we, you're explaining it to me like I'm five, like a project, what are like the elements that it has in it? I mean, great, like I'm planning a wedding, I'm studying for a thesis, but what makes it different than me just like driving to work every day?
Great, right? So you would say like driving to work is one repeated task that you have to do over
Mhm.
and over and over again. Um, you could stretch it and say the same things apply, but really when we talk about a project, we're talking about a collected, organized effort over a longer period of time. You could have one very busy day, right? Where you're trying to get one task done and you're dealing with the same things. But really, what makes it different, I think, than an individual task that you're working on is that you're integrating with other people. And a huge part of the management piece is those other humans. And sometimes it can be the most complicated part of what you're working on. I think everyone who's listening, even if you're, say, high school on, has had some sort of experience where, you know, this person I was working with, they didn't hold up their end or what have you, right? And you got to take their workload on. And how do you work through that as a leader? I know we're going to talk about leadership versus management. The two things are intertwined, of course, and you could debate which is which and definitions for hours, but both things are solid skills. But usually, you would say that it's a longer task than say just an hour or two. It has some sort of defined set of scope and or cost criteria. Sure, you're burning gas as you're commuting to work, but not necessarily a multifaceted task that requires other folks to be involved and happens over a suitable period of time. But many people get confused between activity, task, project, program. A lot of these words can be used interchangeably. And actually, that's one of the values of having, say, a PMP or any sort of project management credential is that you have a shared framework for what these words mean. And that helps you be an effective communicator. And that everyone can stay on the same page of, well, what are we actually talking about right now? Shared language is always helpful.
I really like that. And I know you helped me get my PMP, and it was interesting because I kept on thinking about like trying to think of examples. And you said, okay, well, you've done a promotion ceremony, right? Or you've been in charge of some type of event that had a start and a stop. And I thought, oh, okay, like that makes perfect sense, right? So I heard you kind of already start to jump into like why potentially like a PMP is valuable because you talked about, okay, it's going to give you a common language, but it's 2025. There's a ton of certs out there. There's like a lot that's going on. Why do you think it's valuable now to invest in yourself and get that certificate?
I think that's a really important question because especially like the pace of today's development, what am I going to do next?
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the most important thing, especially if you're entering the professional workspace, whether you're graduating from a BS, BA, or a master's program or whatever it may be, is well, what field am I entering, and what's the right sort of tools or experience that can set me apart in that. Many people, right, they're just starting in that field. It's a great question. I know a passion of yours, Liz, is mentorship. Like that's a great question to, who are you working with and for? What are their experiences? And the PMP is probably one of the most internationally widely known credentials, but it is not the end all be all for every sort of activity. Let's say you're, a pure research scientist. Maybe not. Maybe you're in the finance realm. I'm not a finance person by background, or an accountant or something like that. Or I'm not a communications expert. There are hundreds, thousands of career fields where there might be something more pertinent you should take first. An example, I would say, is say like the cybersecurity computer software sort of development world. Like knowing to code would probably be fundamental, so you can like help complete these tasks that make up a project. But as you move from say a part of a project team to leading a project, having a credential that focuses on the kind of industry agnostic language that PMI has would be helpful. I don't think you need necessarily any sort of project management credential to be successful. I think you can have a balance of experience, documented professional education. I'm a huge fan, coming from the construction and engineering world. I'm a huge fan of people who get, certificates in certain trades or licenses or what have it may be. Something as simple out there of like how to be the best Excel guru you can be. That can be a massive skill. But
Yes.
tools like those are tools that I think a project manager can then utilize inside of a larger project effort. And I think that if you want to make the change from, again, being part of a team to leading teams,
Okay.
this can be an effective way to do that.
Okay.
In one way, I think getting an outside, recognized, agnostic credential is a way to demonstrate one that you can, follow instructions, study for an exam, pass, and show that you have the diligence, frankly, probably on your own time, maybe or maybe not with your employer's resources, but you can see a task through. That might be, in one way, shape, or form, one of the most important parts of earning this credential is I sat down, I decided I'm going to do this, and I made it happen. That kind of self-driven achievement, I think everyone's looking for,
Yep.
even if you don't necessarily use all the skills every day or the
Yeah,
language every day.
so you made me think of two things, right? It's like how many projects do we have that we're juggling, right? And like we have to prioritize them, and it really doesn't matter how well you start it. It's like how well did you finish it, right? So did that ceremony go well, or the briefing that you had to do on a new effort, right? And you kind of mentioned earlier that human factor, and so like if I had to tell someone like what the PMP like has done for me, I feel like it makes me a little bit more proficient in cat herding, right? It's like the hey, we got to get where are we on this? How do we maybe re-vector if we've gone too far out? Um, and so like I think if I'm thinking in those lines, right, we know that we can't ignore how AI is going to impact us and just sort of the automation, how it's changing it. So what do you see if like someone's looking at like sort of debating between I want to get maybe smarter in AI, but also there's a PMP element. Do those go hand in hand? Um, do you think AI is gonna like replace the need for you to have PMP? Like where does that all kind of fall
I
together?
think, yeah, I think that's a great series of questions. One of the first things that come to my mind is if I think of AI as a tool first and foremost that helps us get, in some settings, bureaucratic or administrative things done, like a language model. Like one of the easiest things that comes to mind again is, okay, it's time to set up my like monthly report and submission, right? Like AI helping you create a template for that you as say the PM or a member of the project team puts information on, and then AI can help you distribute that. Or AI, I think anybody who's who is using the dreaded Outlook every day, right? You have those task reminders and those kind of simple tools. AI can help with that a lot. But what AI can't do is AI isn't out there operating, in the human dimension. It can't go to a project site or follow people, run around the office, make all the phone calls, that collects all that information and helps you again manage this usually human-led task. It can help you share information, help you keep you on track, help you present information. All of those are all key tools, but it can't do that human to human interface. And some projects, right? It's a customer and the person doing the effort. It's just a two-person project, and they're expending resources and time together. Other times, it's teams of thousands. If we think about significant construction projects or the development of a you know I took a tour of a cat factory the other week. Develop of a new
A what
engine.
factory?
Cats, Caterpillar.
Oh, okay. I went straight to, I
Yeah,
was like, oh, cat. All right. Thank you for the
yeah. Well,
non-CE people in the world.
yeah. Well, set up a donation for cat food. That could be a project,
Yes.
right? You know, um, but like they were talking about how they develop a new engine. Well, that
Mm,
takes engineers and craftsmen, and there's a quality team, and all of those things. AI might help with the 3D modeling of how an engine's going to operate, but it can't replace that human-to-human interaction.
yeah.
AI can't go out to construction company X and say, how is this test engine working for you in the field? It can't do that, those kind of things, but it can help people be effective, especially I think as they communicate. That's probably the first place it intersects.
Mm, yeah.
And then smarter project management tools. Anybody who's used like scheduling or estimating software has probably been frustrated in the past. Some of those tools, they take a lot of experience to become a master in. But like automatic like error checking, say on a schedule development of, hey, this schedule, these activities don't quite flow together right. Like those are kind of rudimentary AI tools, right? It's a program, algorithm, and those kind of things. So I think it's an asset, it's a tool. I don't think it's going to be a cure-all for, frankly, leading human endeavors.
Okay. Yeah. I really like that. I mean, it makes me sort of take a step back and go, okay, so like that element of communication, like think about how many times you do a sensing survey or a deox and it says like, oh, hey, we need better communication, right? And it seems like with the PMP, you're improving your communication, you're like doing those touch points, and all of those things kind of help you to just be able to make sure you haven't gotten too far off like vector, right? So I like that kind of framework.
I heard a great phrase the other day: "Conquer the blank page."
Oh, okay. So what does that mean?
Like, I have to put this communique out, or I have to write this report, and how many hours have humans spent? I know I have staring at a blinking cursor. Like, hey, AI, help me write. So I'm just thinking of a language model. Help me write a project update to my boss, and it needs to include conversations about how we're doing on cost and how we're doing on time. You can, because it's way easier. We all know to edit somebody else's work than create your own. So getting something as simple as like helping you in 5 minutes have a draft that you can edit and share with somebody else, versus where do I start on writing this? That would save thousands of man hours a year on some projects out there. But then again, if you're jumping into a project in the middle, forms and those kind of things, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
We hope, right? Hope is, what do they say? Hope's a killer,
absolutely.
not a strategy.
Um, like you can't just cross your fingers, but I don't think it replaces unless we have full Skynet, AI, where like the AI is a stakeholder and it's operating in a sort of a peer fashion. I think it's a set of tools um, that we could that you could effectively employ. Um, but then again, the irony is probably the industry that the PMI language may most closely, perfectly resembles like software development, which is kind of AI development. There's an irony there. Um, you could have AI help you like literally code or edit your code. So AI could be literally the tool you're using to create your product or to reach your result. But that's only like for one set of, if you will, projects. Um, AI is not going to help you. Well, to the example we just kind of came up there off the cuff, AI is not going to help you like organize a cat adoption event.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
not going to do a whole lot for wrangling literal cats,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it may help you generate the invite that says,
Sure.
"Hey, on President's Day 2025, open adoption, invitation. Come see if you want to get a new cat."
Yes. Meow. Not to exclude the dog lovers.
Absolutely.
So I love it. Okay, so you've convinced me that there's value in this, right? And that it's like AI isn't going to take it over. So I'm good on that. But let's talk about return on investment because when we think about what we never get more of is time and money, right? Or we're hoping to get more of, right? So that's a pretty big investment. And like, if we're just kind of thinking about the numbers, I read a stat that said like, oh, you can make up to 25K more if you have it. But like, is this happening? Of course, like in the military, we're not seeing that if you're doing those. But what's the return on investment?
So I'm really glad you brought that up. When I was earning mine, started the process in about 2012 and
Hmm.
got it early in 2013. The number then was $10,000 a year.
Oh, snap.
So we've seen about a 200% growth. And again, I'm not an accountant, but we can compare that with inflation. I think that's doing pretty good.
We don't do public math. It's okay.
Yeah, we don't do public math. I think, and without discussing hiring boards and those kind of things,
Hmm.
I think even without a separate dollar figure or a precise dollar figure, from my direct personal experience, is that it can simply set people apart on a resume.
Mm. Oh, because I mean, you've been a hiring official for like hundreds of people. So,
Um,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
or at least just a scoring member or what have you, or even just saying, hey, I wasn't even on the board, but I was someone included me as a stakeholder and like which resumes
Yeah.
we were going to look at, and like, well, this person has this. Um,
Mm.
and in a perfect world, the example we always use is how can I set myself apart?
Yeah. That
If I
proxy.
have two humans that are being represented on, I have two resumes, I consider them, they both have excellent, experience, they have the appropriate degree, they've been working in the field for an appropriate amount of time, whatever it may be. Something as simple as a credential can make a difference. Now, doesn't mean they've used it every day. How good of a project manager are they? Passing a test is not doing this in, again, like in the human dimension. Um, I think it can help you get in the door
Mm, okay.
and be at, if
Yeah.
you will, the top of the resume stack. I would like to have seen a corresponding kind of statistic. Folks with PMPs are more likely to see more interviews.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, it's not going to make you ace the interview.
Yeah.
It's not going to make up for 10 years of direct experience in your personal field or whatever it may be. But maybe it can make up for a couple years.
Mm,
Maybe again, if you're keep competing against somebody else who's exactly as qualified as you are, this little extra can put you over. I think personally, again, I'm not going to do public math, but probably that 25K number, or again, a dozen years ago, the 10K number, I'm sure that's a difference across various project managers in various fields and an average and all those kind of things. It's not saying that
mm.
like if I got this tomorrow and show up and add it to my resume that I'm going to get a raise,
I mean, you can try.
but you can try it. Um,
Sure.
I think if it wasn't valuable, you wouldn't see people one going for it, and you wouldn't see people looking for it.
Oh,
In
yeah.
our shared industry, there literally are positions where that's required. A credential like this
Mm.
is required. But
Yeah.
I also like going back to that. Maybe it can make up for that a couple years of experience. It can show that dedication. It can show that you know how to
Mm-hmm.
apply some skills.
Mm-hmm.
I think that also helps. I I'm not going to say what the number is, but I am certain that there is a financial payoff, an ROI, even if it's after you leave the job that you're in and you look for a new position. A lot of folks, right, don't maximize their earning potential until they're in their 30s or early 40s. So it might take some time for this to truly pay off. Or maybe as you grow from, you know, working smaller projects and graduate up and up and up, maybe that's when it eventually pays off. But
Yeah.
I am fully convinced that in the longer scheme of things, there is an ROI. To your
Mm-hmm.
question of, well, what is the ROI? Most people I've mentored or chatted with about earning this usually accomplish it in, if they're kind of ready before they start the process, in about under a year.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's
Um,
doable.
yes, you have to study hours after work, kids, family, weekends, whatever it may be. Yes, there's the
Mm-hmm.
application fee, there's the testing fee, which are really super cool now, especially with the technology we're using right now. You can basically take the test on a Saturday afternoon at
I
1
know. I
p.m.
did that. I
It's
totally did
amazing,
it. It
right?
was so nice. It was like, yeah.
I'm old enough that I had to like schedule at a testing center, so that was
Pre-COVID. We can thank COVID for certain things, right?
yeah.
Hmm.
But it was a little intimidating. Like I had to like pay the testing center, reserve a desk like on a Saturday afternoon, and it was like
Yeah.
going back to take the SATs or ACT or what
Yeah.
have you. It was a little intimidating.
Judging you. Judging you.
I know. Whereas if you can do it at your kitchen table with your camera on,
Yeah.
you're comfortable. We can talk test taking skills and everything later, but
Yeah.
that's huge. Um, and the admission, or I'm sorry, the application fees and the fee for a book or a course or whatever it may be, those change depending on what resource somebody wants to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what some people neglect is that there is a sustainment cost.
Oh, okay.
Well, you've gone through it.
Yeah.
We've talked about
Yeah.
this
You pay the
actually.
renewal fee. Yeah.
Yeah, the annual fee and or your keeping up to date on your professional development.
Yeah. So those courses.
And
Um,
PMI or other places, there's tons of education services. And, you might pay $100 a course. You might pay 50.
mhm.
You might pay to go to a seminar and get all of your, professional development hours out for 3 years and in a couple business days. There's all sorts of
Mhm.
strategies there. A
Yeah.
great way to earn some of those professional development hours. I haven't really used it, but is mentoring others or direct
Yeah.
experience. It's a little
Yeah.
harder to quantify. But I've found that it's helpful just to keep, like, you have to stay on top of skills and you have to keep refreshing them. And there's always a use it or lose it. Even if you're doing things every day, there's always new techniques and things that are coming up, new language.
Yeah.
So maybe, a couple $100 a year to keep the credential. But there's
Mm.
always a grace period. Hey, like, you're overdue a little bit, but you have to, if you enter it now and you pay your fee, like you won't lose it. But that's ironically kind of a good project management skill. Of I have this requirement that's due. It's not due today. It's not due tomorrow. But I have to track, uh,
Monitor. Yes.
and expend some resources, and it's due on a deadline.
Yeah.
The irony there is you have to kind of project manage your project management credential.
I know. I know.
I have a number of credentials, but so I would say probably I spend maybe $200 a year, or sorry, every 3 years keeping my PMP.
Okay.
There's a larger upfront cost. Call it, say, a total of, I think if I were to estimate today, about $600 probably. If you're doing application fee, testing fee, at least buying PMIs, Project Management Institute's materials, you're probably
Hmm.
looking at the $500, $600 range. Unless you have a friend who has the most recent book, you just borrow theirs.
There you go.
Uh,
There you go.
but I think, over an earning career, you'll see that getting paid off. And
Yeah.
I think there's also, ROIs can be different. I'm not going to say someone's
Mm.
getting paid more every year, but if it makes you more effective at what you're actually doing, you just might have less of a headache sometimes.
Yep.
I know that if I could make some of the work and efforts I'm involved in go smoothly every year, I would gladly pay.
Mm.
Right? If I could, not going to name any names or anything, but if I could pay for somebody to gain more communication skills tomorrow, so they were
Yeah.
easier to work with as we worked on a
Yeah.
shared effort,
Oh yeah.
You know, having a PMP might help you be a better communicator, which helps people
Mhm.
communicate to you better. So the ROI is not might not be in a paycheck. It might just be in ease of work or becoming better at what you're doing. And depending on who you are, where you're working, that could be extremely valuable, even if you can't quantify it with a fiscal figure.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that alone, I think like if you are working as a leader and you see the value of PMP, right, then if you have the resources to even have your people get a basic framework of the understanding or just when we think about terminology, um, one of the things I've thought about a lot is when we talk about project management, this concept of being agile, right? We're gonna get the minimum viable product out there. We're gonna say, hey, this is this plan, right? And we're gonna test it, and it's gonna suck, but we're gonna learn from it, and then we're gonna reiterate on it. And if you're familiar with that framework, then you're not as frustrated when you're like, oh, we're on version 4 already. This is horrible. Like, why did we do this? And it's instead of going, oh, this is great. We did an iterative process. We collect all the information. We tested it. We would move forward, um, and we're getting better and better. And we're getting it out to the field faster than if we had spent 3 years. And guess what? The product may not even be that good anyway because it's
Or
ineffective.
maybe obsolete.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
you
And that's
hear
what thing. Yeah.
leaders and managers say, well, I'm not looking for good, I'm looking for effective, or I'm not looking for perfect, right? We need to
Mm-hmm.
move. Um, and understanding like how a leader is willing to take risk to balance cost and schedule versus quality and get things moving along. Um, and understanding that they're not saying like they don't care about the value of what you're doing. We just need to move. Again, like having outside entity kind of walk you through some of that so you can be more effective in your work, maybe even just more successful at what you're actually just trying to do.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe the ROI for some folks is just less headaches. You
Less,
know,
hey, if you tell me less headaches or I can go home like even 15 minutes earlier, like those are those little micro wins that, that'll add up. So,
and to go back to the language piece again,
mhm.
Liz, as you were just mentioning agile, I think one of the really good points is whether you're working for a company X, company Y, you know, uh, integrated school district in state X, a university, a government job, or whatever. Every either workplace or institution has some sort of like project language that they use. You know, whether it's your
Yeah.
infamous TPS reports from Office Space or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
Another ROI I think is the PMI language. It's like learning kind of the original mother tongue.
Okay.
Every project has some sort of cost schedule. They have stakeholders, i.e., people who are involved. They can be called customers, whatever you want to be. But
Hmm.
kind of learning that root language and having that framework helps you be adaptable to whatever, again, institution or company that you're working for, who might have their own kind of dialect
Yeah.
for project management.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great things about the credential, not to be a salesman here, but the fundamentals of what the credential is and the material you're studying, they apply in just about every scenario.
Yeah.
And you realize, man, we all do these same things, these same tasks. You know, we
Hmm.
initiate, we monitor control, we plan, we execute, we close, whatever phase of a project you're talking about. We all do all these things. We just sometimes call them different things,
Yeah.
but they all need to be
It's so
done.
true. Yep.
And so kind of being able to have again the shared framework or shared language is so important.
Yeah.
Can help you be, I think, more effective. And I think in the general scheme of things, if you're more effective, you're going to be a better, more successful employee, and that's what usually leads to you being more valued, which then usually leads to that paycheck.
Yeah. I love it. All right, so you've convinced me, right? I want to get the PMP. Obviously, you did convince me because I did get it. I know that there's a lot of different ways to study for it. And I'm curious from your perspective, it's 2025, they made it their goal for the year. What would you tell them? I'm like, all right, this is what you need to be focusing on.
Yeah, and not to be the kind of person who answers a question with a question, but one of the most important things is, well, how do you learn?
Mm, mm-hmm.
From my sake, what I like to do is I'm always a fan of returning to the source material. I don't want anybody between me and what I'm working on.
Yeah.
So what was effective strategy for me as, a having some experience under my belt. So I had some visual mental examples from the construction industry and those kind of things. I had the book in front of me and I took a page of notes on every single subchapter, every single lesson. Right. There used to be formulas and those kind of things, whether it was earned value or the lines of communication formula and those kind of things. I wrote all those out. I wrote out examples for each lesson of how does this apply to me? How
Okay.
does this specific process or step that they're talking about, how do we
Oh,
do it in the
okay.
engineering or construction world?
Mm.
Other folks, and I think especially if you just can't find the time to get away, like the 5 day, 4 day courses are great because
Mm.
then you're not, say, distracted.
Yep.
And you're in a forum, maybe it's a room with 10 other people, maybe it's or online a couple hours a night kind of class. You're having someone kind of push the information to you.
Yeah.
A lot of folks, they don't really want to be taking notes. They want to be visualizing what somebody else is speaking about and have a back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. If you get stuck, right? Like nothing more frustrating than, hey, like I don't understand this concept. And now, you know, you really can't get that like instant clarity from that peer or like a instructor on it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way. And then there are also a host of, you know, maybe someday there'd be a Dr. Liz Moyer, you know, the PMP broken down, and it's a 400-page book walking people through with
Mm-hmm.
various examples per each task or step
Mm-hmm.
or each process that's involved in project management. Sometimes people just want to read a book that isn't and walk through a book that's kind of a guide.
Yeah.
I haven't seen one in
Yeah.
a while, but there used to be a whole series of book, right? The Dummy's Guide too.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well,
I
it's
haven't seen one of
like
those in a minute.
it's really interesting. I mean, I was just going on YouTube and I was looking up like, it's the second largest search engine optimization, so a lot of people are going to that. I personally, I took it on Digital University, so that's available to all service members. But on the back end, it was like a Udemy course, and it was a super nerdy guy, and he kept on every single time he ended his session, it was like keep moving forward, and it like to this day, Aaron and I will like encourage each other that way. But I mean, we didn't crack the book open. I mean, we got in the book, and I have found on like Anna's archive, you can get the digital copy of it. But once again, it sounds like you were kind of like more of a tactile person. You want to highlight and or even like
Absolutely.
ask yourself the questions. I think that's huge to say like I'm a protocol officer, I'm a maintenance officer. What like the rollout of the V21? What phases would this be in, or
Yeah,
whatever?
and I think while we were kind of speaking, a great question to ask is, how best do I learn, and
Mm-hmm.
proceeding that way. I also think if someone maybe just hasn't been doing project management for years, having somebody who has more, either layman's terms or more shared experience they can pass along while you're taking, say, a course or a lesson or whatever it may be. That's key
Yeah.
because those live examples of of humans working together with a variety of different, again, examples from different work centers or types of projects that can help cement the
Mm-hmm.
language. I think going to the book, if you have a lot of experience going to the book, learning that, oh, this is how they discuss this process that I know I'm already doing, that can be an effective strategy. If you don't
Yeah.
have as many years of experience, going with a kind of a mentored kind of classroom environment where somebody can pass
Mm-hmm.
along theirs
Mm-hmm.
or their examples and experience, that might be effective too. So I think it depends on which way you like to assimilate information. The other two things I would want to stress is it's a language exam.
Oh.
I know when we
Oh,
were
that's a
talking,
great way of thinking about it.
we were all working together. I stressed that a lot of you do these things, you just call it something else.
Yeah, it's so true. You're at home and you're working, or you're taking care of your family, right? Like if you're planning a vacation, it has a start, it has a stop, key stakeholders, right? Cost, time, like it literally applies to anything.
Yeah. It's a language exam, and the other most important, I guess I have 3 points here. Language exam. Two, there's no wrong time to start.
Mm,
Again, because you can test any point whenever you want. Some people, if they've been doing this for 2 decades, once they kind of go, oh, this is how they talk about this. This is how the PMI uses this language. Shoot, I can take this tomorrow. Hey, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would kind of be, using the credential to demonstrate that you truly have all this experience and have this under your belt. That's a great way to go. But there's no time, don't put it off. Begin. The hardest part is the first step, all those kind of sayings, right? And the other piece is don't, once you've started, see it through. I've met a number of folks who have, say, completed their application, gotten the resources, or, have done the research of when is the local class, or is my company holding a class, whatever it may be, but I haven't pushed like the next button.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this happens to all of us. The book has been sitting on your counter for 2 months. Once you kind of get started, again, you're demonstrating your ability to see a project to completion.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. The great part is you can retest. There's no harm, no foul.
Mm-hmm.
Once you test, PMI does a pretty solid job of like, hey, this is how you scored in each area. So if you're comfortable kind of, there are practice tests and those kind of things, but you're like, hey, I've taken a practice test or two. I think I'm ready to go. I'm not sure I'm ready for the big exam, but you know what? I'm going to try first. I'm just going to see how it goes and see where I'm at. Because I've seen some people, they kind of get into like a study spiral. And they're over elaborating, over kind of deliberate, too much time. Maybe it's just, sometimes you just got to pull the trigger. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if you paid for 2 tests or you passed on the second time. Okay. Don't let it go too long. Because it's a language, in my personal opinion, language exam. If you're not really using their language every day, and you're using a different, say, educational, industry set of language, you might not be as familiar if you let 3 months go before you test it. So I would say, it's relatively easy enough to get it done under a year, straightforward enough with some concerted effort. Let's say it takes you, with your annual reports or your resume, what projects you've done in your education records. Let's say you get the application done, in 90 days, because you take some homework to pull some of that information together, to fill out the application, submit it, hear back. It takes you a week, to get the books to your house or whatever. I would say, maybe 60 days worth of studying would probably be the minimum, depending on if you studied it yourself, you're waiting for a class or what have you. But hypothetically, if you took a class and it ended on a Friday, you could take the exam the next day.
Yeah.
But that kind of, like, to use some of the agile language, like a sprint, if you will,
Yeah.
that would kind of be a sprint, or you could, draw it out. Some folks don't want to test twice. They want to be kind of over prepared so they can walk in and go, man, I wasted like 2 months of studying, but hey, I'm confident I got it right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on what a person's schedule and those kind of things are. I think there's just as many different types of projects out there. There's a number of different ways to study and prepare, but they all kind of share some similarities. The application stuff, because you have to present a lot of information about yourself and your experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the first big thing, milestone to accomplish. Set
Mm-hmm.
aside either a study place or make sure you take the class. You're going to have a study effort, and then you're going to have a testing phase.
Yeah.
So it's getting your PMP is going to come in 3 phases.
That was a long test. I still remember thinking like, oh man, I mean, I think it was over 3 hours. So, I mean, I mentally prepared myself for it, but you kind of realize like, I don't think I've sat down this long.
Right, and you only get so many bathroom breaks and those kind of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Oh, this is really stressful.
I remember joking with you and Aaron, right? Like by the end of the test, the word project is going to lose all meaning.
Yeah. I'm like, what is this? Yeah.
Like,
No. Oh
um,
man. Well, this has been really helpful. I think, I still remember, I mean, the reason why even bringing you on here was just this concept of changing the perspective of, hey, like everyone does projects, you know, and when I think about as a leader, I always am looking for tools that can help me be more effective. And we often look at soft skills or we look at just different experiences. But this is sort of the PMP is such an interesting blend of the two. I did just renew mine, and I really actually I used AI quite a bit to help me with like putting in some of this is the terminology that PMI is looking for. Here's what I've done. How do I need to strengthen my application, or what am I thinking of? What could I do differently? So it's going to be interesting to see how that continues to change. And I mean, I've got different examples of people that have said they've used Google Notebook LM to study, download documents in there, or like, I mean, you can train a bot to like quiz you, right?
Absolutely.
So there's like so many options out there.
Yeah, I'm just a big fan of. I spend enough time in front of screens anyway. I prefer a physical book, and as you said, like a
So yeah,
highlighter
if
and a
you're
pencil.
old school at
I
heart, then
am.
you got to do it.
Yeah.
But I wrote down a couple things, and what I think was interesting was just like, hey, there's no like if you're gonna do it, just start, right? And so it made me think of kind of that terminology of now, not how, right? When we start to ask how, we start to get those barriers, and then also it's like who, not how, right? So when we do feel stuck, like, okay, I haven't applied for this, I feel overwhelmed, I went to the website, I felt like I could do it, and now I don't know what to do. It's taking that step back and going, okay, who has done this, right? So I am gonna hopefully let folks know if they want, and for I guess more information, or to pick Adam's brain. Hopefully, people can reach out to you and say, hey, um, what do you think, right? Because sometimes a 10-minute conversation can really make a big deal. I know you've helped tons and tons of people both in and outside of the military with getting the PMP. So we'll drop some information in the
Perfect.
yeah, it'll be good. So,
Yeah, I mean, a successful project, it means it's, at the very least done. Doesn't mean you doesn't mean you stayed on schedule perfectly. Doesn't mean you were perfectly on budget. You didn't spend a penny more than you thought. And you might get a report that says, yeah, you could improve in these areas, but you passed. Great, still accomplished. The two things I like to recommend, Liz, to your point of kind of starting, is
okay.
you can go to the PMI's website right now. You can Google PMI, Project Management
Hmm.
Institute, and you can like download like a PDF copy of the application.
Okay.
You could do that in the next 5 minutes.
Sweet. I like
I've
it.
mentored some folks, right, and I've like pulled it up on my cell phone and like passed them my cell phone in my office and said, "This is what I'm talking about. You can do this. You could be doing this right now on your phone." That's a like a nano step to begin, and sometimes a couple nano steps start adding up to full steps, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden we're off and running. Another one is, I know for a lot of folks, if the book or the invitation or the flyer for the course or whatever is sitting on the kitchen counter and it's right there in front of you, that's a great way of, keeping one track. I know that, I mean, we all do laundry, right? Like if the laundry is sitting there on the bed, I'm more
Mm,
likely to put it away
it's a good strategy.
than if it's somewhere else, right? And it's not in front of me. But
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, that constant reminder can be a pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, things are gonna happen. I moved after like
Hmm.
beginning my study process, moved to a next assignment, so I got delayed by a couple months.
Yeah.
Like life stuff happens. So I thought I had studied and prepared, moved. Okay, I need to take a step back, kind of spend maybe another handful of weeks, kind of refreshing, and then I went and took the exam. So
Hmm.
again, your schedule might not be perfect, but there's no time like no time like now
Yeah.
to begin.
Spoken like a true project manager, right? Just gotta get.
I guess so. I guess so.
Oh, that's awesome. No, well, really appreciate it, and thank you personally. Thank you for your time, and grateful for you sharing your wisdom.
Appreciate it, Liz. Thank you for the time.